Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the last day of the symposium. This is Danny here, team lead for strength conditioning at Singapore Sport Institute. We really appreciate that you can all join us despite the short registration period. Really thankful that you free up your time to show us your support. This year has been a challenging year for everyone around the world because of COVID-19. And as you've already noticed, based on the presentation yesterday, um, athletes' training has been compromised, and it was pretty tough for everyone. So today, for the last segment, we'll have speakers talking about things we did to overcome the odds, how we support the athletes despite the circuit breaker and lockdown. Our first speaker is Dr. Richard Swinbourne, better known as Rico. Rico comes from New Zealand, and he's trained as a dietitian through the University of Otago, and he completed his Sport Dietitian course with Sport Dietitians Australia. Rico worked with New Zealand Rugby Union as their High Performance Nutritionist for national All Black teams between 2007 and 2014. 9 years ago, Rico stepped sideways to explore the world of sleep among elite athletes, completing his doctorate with the Auckland University of Technology. Rico is currently the team lead of sport nutrition at SSI. Rico is enjoying the application of both his nutrition and sleep knowledge to our elite sporting environment here in Singapore, and will be sharing his own unique insights and those of his sport science colleagues in his keynote address. From broken circuit to completing the loop, sport science support at SSI during uncertain times. All right, without further ado, Rico, I'm handing it over to you.
Danny, many thanks for the lovely warm introduction. I've been doing that role that you've just done all week, and it's really nice to have an opportunity to be on the other side of the mic, I suppose. So yeah, thanks, Danny, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today in this capacity. I really appreciate it. I'm a little bit surprised actually as well, because to be fair, I haven't had the best track record with with these sorts of things. I remember vividly 2 years ago, Leanne, you'll be very happy to note that actually that I'm standing for this presentation. I'm not sitting, because 2 years ago, the seat that I was sitting on center stage in front of 200 people split, and I wound up smack on my backside in front of 200 people. That was epic. And Marcus, you'll be glad to know that I'm not planning on sleeping during this presentation. And there'll be no cold beers coming out either midstream as well. It is far too early in the morning, that being said. So Danny, thanks. Good morning, everybody. Nice to be here. A different sort of a presentation for me today, not talking about sleep, not really talking about nutrition, as my title implies. I'm talking about, I mean, circuits have been broken right around the world, haven't they, with COVID-19? It's caused a lot of fragmentation within our high performance sport world, within the sporting world, within, you know, all professions and all lives. We're all living through it. But what I would like to suggest during the course of this presentation is that there is also opportunity here, opportunity to complete the loop, to put arms around shoulders, to close ranks, and you know, with stress and pressure and discomfort, you know, comes an opportunity to evolve and adapt and to actually do some things a lot better than we were doing them before COVID-19, which actually really excites me. So this is a different sort of a presentation. There's not a lot of methodology. There's not a lot of facts and figures and numbers and data and scientific this and that. But there's a lot of good stuff in here, I think. And, you can take it any way that you choose. If you want to, avidly take notes and lock down, all these take homes and takeaways, and put tools in your toolkit, for a rainy day, then you're more than welcome. If you just want to close your eyes and kind of let the ideas kind of float over you, you're welcome to do that as well. I think this is the first presentation in a long time that I've had the pleasure of doing before lunchtime. Usually I get the afternoon shift and the postprandial dip and people are nodding off. So hopefully everyone's nice and alert today. So here we are, folks. Here we are contemplating, sitting with Matthew Ricard, purportedly the most happy man on the planet, Tibetan monk, French origin. And here we are gazing out on the world, a very different world than what we looked out upon, this time last year. And, whilst there's somewhat of a distance between you and me right now, I can contemplate something I know about you, each and every one of you, very, very personal and deep and central to your being. And equally, you can look at me on the screen and know the same thing about me. And what we know about each other is that we all want to be happy. We all want to experience happiness. Nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, well, I really want to be miserable today. We just don't do that as human beings, do we? We all want to find this thing called happiness and hang on to it. And I think that's something that's been impacted upon, among many other things, quite profoundly during the COVID experience. If we think about happiness, well, happy holidays anyway, that's what they look like pre-COVID, and that's pretty much what a happy holiday looks like right now. Although I would suggest that it is more than this impact on holidays, impact on pleasure really, rather than happiness. It's more than that, that's impacting bodies, impacting minds, impacting purpose. These are the reasons why our sports psychology team have been so immensely busy since COVID erupted, supporting our athletes, supporting our coaches, supporting each other as well as high performance personnel, emotional and mental well-being state during the circuit breaker, and some wonderful online work rolling out from our team. Of course, April 2020, Prime Minister Lee came online and he announced that we were going to enter a circuit breaker, which wound up being close to 2 months. And I remember, well, we only had 4 days notice, and the very next day, Dr. Marcus Lee rang me up and he said, Rico, I think we got to do something. We've got to pull together as sports scientists with our collective knowledge, with our mind share and with our hearts. We have to really pull together and do something for our people, which I thought was really a really admirable move. And so the webinar series, When My Circuit Broke, was launched. It was fronted by an all-star cast, the sports science team at SSI, indeed the team around the team, and every single man and every single woman within our division pulled to in the way that they best could. We have a lot of different skill sets within our environment, and everybody fronted and contributed to what was an amazing initiative, really, an attempt to put some support structures in place for our people, for our athletes and for our coaches, for our high performance personnel right around the country, who we suddenly couldn't see, in a face-to-face capacity. So, we had a lot of different skill sets. This guy's got a particularly good skill set in front of the camera. Doesn't mind a camera, does Renault, from our strength and conditioning team. Here he is announcing the circuit breaker extension by 1 month, which was another big impact on our people. Here he is as well, announcing the fact that bubble tea would no longer be available. That was also very traumatic, I understand, for a lot of young people particularly. I personally didn't see what the fuss was, but anyway. And, sometimes he was just being plain silly, was Renault. But, you know, the narrative laced throughout the entire production was one of humour, and that was really important to keep people buoyant. It was one of care and support, and it was also one of sports science, a really strong sports science presence in and amongst this production. Cometh the hour, cometh the man and the woman. Absolutely, you know, the very at the very core of building an athlete and maintaining an athlete is strength and conditioning, isn't it? And this is where our S&C team really had to stand up, and they did so admirably with home-based strength and conditioning programs for a bunch of various sports, and some really nice demonstrative clips across various physical attributes that could be trained in a home-based setting with minimal equipment for various sports and in various ways. So, you know, grouping sports in different clusters, racket sports, for example, team sports, aquatic sports, and combat sports as well across different threads, power, quickness, strength, and endurance as well. Some really nice step-by-step videos. Here's Calvin and the S&C team, you know, taking everybody through a warm-up and then progressively into the different types of dynamic workouts that people could do at home safely and effectively, and then through a warm down as well. What I really liked was the empowerment of our athlete population as well within our ecosystem, getting our athletes involved. Here's Mantong demonstrating some rollouts on the foam roller, and just, you know, really important to give our athletes as well during this time a strong voice. And indeed, you know, alongside demonstrating, you know, we heard some really nice narration as well. Here's a young chap from our water polo team just having a chat really online about what he was struggling with and what was working well for him, and just some little strategies that he was finding really helpful in the time and in the moment. Of course, we had a nice nutrition presence as well, and here's Parim and the Sport Dietitian team with an immune boosting smoothie. Immunity was on everybody's lips and still is an area of interest that's really central to this COVID experience. And of course, you know, a good healthy nutritional theme ran throughout these series as well. And then, of course, it was anchored by our sports psychology team. And if any team I think has been pulled upon the most, it's probably our sports psychology team, which, you know, in some ways is really tremendous to see the attitude change and the embracing of sports psychology, you know, for health and wellness at this time. And one thread that emerged that I was really connected with was this cognitive restructuring, a positive reframing of detrimental thoughts, which might affect emotions and behaviors. If we cast back a good number of years now and just simply think about some of the Holocaust survivors from Nazi Germany, World War II, you know, what allowed those survivors to get through that experience and not only get through it, but actually go on and live happy lives was the fact that they were able to reframe that experience and frame it in a way such that they saw it as having a positive meaning. It had a useful base to the experience, that being that they could, if they survived, they could go forward and tell their story and make damn sure that it never happened again. And so cognitive restructuring is a really, really nice, effective tool. It is central really to generating a purpose out of hardship, and from purpose comes happiness, right? And it's happiness that we're all hunting right now. And we can compare and contrast pleasure, you know, those holidays of sitting under the sun on the sandy beach versus happiness. Pleasure really is like eating a chocolate cake, isn't it? You know, that first piece of cake, well, that's pleasurable. That tastes really good. And then the second bit doesn't taste quite so good, getting a little bit full now, a little bit sick. And then that third bit is just kind of pure disgust. So that's pleasure versus happiness, which is something much more deep and core to our being. Pleasure is a little bit like surfing. You know, sometimes you're up and sometimes you're not, right? Sometimes you're riding the wave with a big smile on your face, and sometimes you're under the wave, getting dragged along the bottom of the ocean. Whereas happiness is deep and really quite unchanging if we identify it and understand it and appreciate it. If you think about the bottom of the ocean, it's completely unaffected by what's happening on the top of the ocean. You can have the biggest storm raging on the top of the sea, right? But at the bottom of the ocean, it's very still and it's very unchanging, and it's completely unaffected by what's happening at the top. And happiness is very much like that, whereas pleasure is not. Really interesting psychological study looking at happiness or perceived happiness on emotional scales. And what they did was they surveyed winners of big lotteries, winning millions and millions of dollars. And obviously, like they asked them, like, how do you feel? How was that? And of course, they feel amazing. They feel ecstatic, big smiles on the dials. And then to contrast against that, they went and asked people who had had an accident and lost the use of their legs, who had become paraplegic. They asked them the same question. And, you don't need me to tell you that the answer was significantly different. They didn't feel so good about that experience. But here's the thing, here's the really interesting bit. 1 year later, both groups rated themselves equally happy in life, around about a 7 out of 10, which seems to be the default happiness level for human beings. And when I heard about this, like, that completely blew me away. How can that be that that people that had experienced such a contrasting external thing in their lives came around to the same happiness point? And the reason for that is that the external event didn't actually shape their underlying happiness, whereas we know that purpose does, having purpose in life. And we've learned this lesson from some of the oldest people on the planet, some of the longest surviving people in what we call these blue zones. If you haven't heard about them, go away and read about this. It's absolutely amazing stuff in and around the topic of longevity. We found pockets of people in Sardinia in Italia, pockets of people in Okinawa, Japan, and Costa Rica, and Icaria in Greece as well. And whilst these vastly different cultures share similarities across a number of different areas of their life, from their diet and their sleep and their ability to downshift and regulate stress and physical activity, and sense of family and faith and belonging, they all have a really strong purpose. They have a really strong reason to get out of bed in the morning. In Sardinia, it might be the old boy getting up to chase his goats around the mountainside and herd them together. It might be this old fella here growing grapes to make his own wine. It might be a grandmother in Okinawa getting up at 6 a.m. to stoke the embers and cook the miso for breakfast for her family. It doesn't really matter. It's not important what the purpose is. It just has to be important to you. And so if you've not read any of these books by Dan Buettner on the Blue Zones, the Blue Zone Solution, my top tip, one of my big takeaways from this presentation would be to go and read that. Is really, really good. And then, from purpose, we can move into gratefulness. And here's another monk. I talked about Matthew at the start, and here's David Steindl-Rast. He gives a lovely presentation on YouTube. Look that up if it interests you. And he talked. Well, I mean, God, look at the guy for a start. I really want to look like this when I get old. Look at his eyes. He looks so wise, and I've kind of got his nose already, so I think I'm halfway there. Isha, hello Isha, if you're watching. Isha let me know 2 days ago that my beard is going very white as well, so thank you, Isha, for that. Yeah, I think I'm right on track for this look. But anyway, David talks about happiness coming from gratefulness. Gratefulness comes from within, from being given something valuable and given it for free. If something meets those two definitions, then you just feel incredibly grateful for it. Time, for example, the gift of time. I mean, time is extremely valuable, isn't it? Once it's gone, it's gone. And we don't have to pay anything for time. So you can see through this lens, we can actually create gratefulness for different things, for time and also opportunities. And this is what David talks about. Opportunities are valuable and free. In every minute, you have a new opportunity. So if you miss your opportunity in this minute, actually, it's okay. You've got opportunity to take in the next minute and the next minute and the next minute, so on and so forth. And these opportunities might be to try something new, to feel, to listen, to look, to experience something for the first time or the second time or the third time, to perform and to reflect and to learn and then get better at something. We have opportunities every minute for all of these, and we can generate a great amount of gratefulness for it. It comes back to this reframing perspective, to see an experience as serving a higher purpose. And, I think within sports science, we definitely see COVID-19 as that opportunity. It is a hallmark of a high performance mindset, isn't it? A champion's mindset. Talking with Yip Pin Siu, one of our greatest ever medalists at major games, 2 times Paralympic champion, world record holder. And, she used this mindset to look at COVID a little bit differently. A good time to reset everything. It was a good time to reset everything. My diet, my sleep, listen to sports science, refine protocols. Not always easy, no way. Difficult to sit there and watch my performance drop. And I think every athlete experienced this drop in spirits around us, watching so many gains just float away. But then the sadness, it only lasted for a day. And after that, it was about working towards the Tokyo Paralympics again, reframing, resetting, reorientating goals. And when Pin Siu was reflecting on this, on the support that she was receiving, the sense of community, having someone else there helped pull me up mentally, knowing I wasn't alone. And I think that really was driving, that was the core motivation behind a lot of what we were trying to do, within sports science for our athletes and for our coaches and for each other as well, because, hugely isolating and lonely time for everybody. The sense of community, we know it's just so healthy. In the blue zones again, here's a group of 90-year-old Japanese women in a group, they call it Moya, which is a really tight-knit group of friends. They're not family, they're not related, but they, they're like, they kind of like, it's a sisterhood, it's a brotherhood, it's a group of people that get on really well, that come together regularly, that share and laugh and cry and really support each other. And we know that this is really fundamental to having a long, healthy and happy life. And, in a sense, we try and do this as well and create a team around the team. And, we try and create this community feel around our athletes, around individual athletes like PX, and also around our teams as well. And I just wanted to share a really nice example of this high performance community. Actually, this is one of the best examples I've ever seen of it. I was really just so impressed with this from our men's water polo team, led by our S&C group, and Calvin there that you saw earlier on. Bringing the boys together on a regular basis, coach-led, sports science supported, athlete care, pre-training briefing, Kelvin working through the pre-training brief and the grid for the boys. We see nutrition coming in, support services around nutrition, around psychology as well. There's a really nice little video that I'd like you to watch and enjoy that Kelvin put together. I think it's really neat, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So I'm just going to play that now. It's about 6 minutes long, so sit back and enjoy the show.
Now,
Sorry, I think we lost a little bit of sound there. Let's try and pick it up.
Every exercise, click on the link, it will show you the exercise. What I ask is that you read through the instructions, you follow the exercise as closely as you can based on other instructions here as well. For body weight exercises to work, it will still work. You need to follow instructions so that you can get the adaptations out of what I'm trying to achieve here.
So tomorrow will be about coping and dealing with this COVID-19 situation, finding new opportunities to grow in these times, the plans for sports psych sessions that I'll share, and also the topics that the team will be keen to know and learn. Perhaps the team can think about more holistic. So anything related to maybe videos that you want to learn more, sports psych sessions, motivation, anxiety, whatnot, S&C sessions that you like to clarify, nutrition topics that you like to learn about, or anything related to the body as well. If there are any specific topics that you like to learn, feel free to let us know, right? So that we can have a continual learning and increase our knowledge in this times as well, right? So that's the main goal.
Yeah, we mostly done. Okay, then now Derek will demonstrate the first superset. So if you want to see the shared screen, right, we got put in the repetitions as well as the number of sets that we're doing today. So obviously, we're going from left to right. So first set is 8 reps, then after that 9 reps, then 9 reps, then last one is 10 reps. Yeah. So for the first superset, we will need the chair or stool or bench or whatever you have to support yourself, as well as for the decline push-ups. For the first superset, Derek will demonstrate. Whereas for the other two supersets, it's a repeat of what we've done before. So unless someone can't remember the exercise, then we will just go ahead. Okay? But for now, Derek will demonstrate the first superset.
For the squat itself, I need you to go low enough such that the back doesn't hunch. Try and keep your chest up. If you can't get down this low, just get down to maybe a quarter squat depth. I think it's fine. Just now I was telling you, don't drop too quickly. So you can see a lot of that big hunch here, even though it's on the back view. So try and keep the chest up. Try and reach your hips backward. Imagine you have a high stool behind that you want to take a seat. So you want to reach your butt rearwards first before you actually go down. So the good thing is that it has this foot intact. So make sure that heel is planted to the ground itself. This is for your feedback. After every single session, whether is it your AM mobility core session, after your afternoon strength or circuit session, I want you to fill this up. The AM sessions, I didn't change much because, like I said, it's supposed to be like a lighter session maybe in the day. Yep. Most of the changes are done here, but we focus a lot on the tempo. So let's hope they can do it with proper form, because like I said, this period is to really focus on the form as well. Sure. Now the circuit session, I have a few focus. So maybe on Tuesday, the focus is more maybe on strength. Even Saturday, I put it as a circuit. Yeah. So Saturday it's quite challenging. It will be, I think. Yeah. Yeah. So it's because it's endurance focus. It's end of the week. Friday session, I change it more to power focus. That's the concept of after week 1 of observation. So this week again, I will observe, and then we'll make the necessary changes. Sure. Yeah. Let's see this, and maybe next week how's this going, and then we can revise, whatever. Yep. Again.
So there we go. It doesn't actually get any better than that. 360-degree coach-driven, sports science supported athlete care. One of the best examples of that I've ever seen. And I hope you enjoyed that little video put together by Kelvin. Really, really smart. Thanks, Kelvin, and Mantong as well for setting me up with that. Really appreciate it. And so the sense of community around a team, and if we push that out a little bit wider, we have within our environment, within our space, 77 spec scholars across 19 different spec sports. And, you know, we wanted to put a community of like a community around them to support them as well through circuit breaker and beyond. And this really nice initiative that we came up with, we called it the Smart Hour, little play on words, an acronym. It's Singapore, isn't it? We had an acronym as well, and it stood for sit down, make a cup of tea, ask a question, reflect on the answer, and use that answer to transcend whatever is bothering you and whatever is a problem at the moment in your life. It was a really nice collaboration fronted by the various team leads of our different disciplines: strength and conditioning, sports psychology, nutrition, physiology, and biomechanics. And the goal really was to create a network of support, put arms around the shoulders of our athletes, to allow them to cross-pollinate, a lovely term that Stevenson Lai taught me, to cross-pollinate ideas across different sports. So we didn't do them in a siloed sport approach. We group sports in different clusters, but you know, there were different sports listening to each other, how they were training, problems they were encountering, solutions they were deriving, both athlete and coach, high performance personnel as well. We were trying to generate a community of practice, so teaching through communication and exchange and storytelling, really, you know, better ways of doing things and helping athletes raise the bar, and also trying to teach our athletes through sports science. And obviously, you know, we have different people representing different sports sciences on the panel, and all able to speak to wonderfully different, various diverse topics, you know, from skill acquisition through to nutrition and how to sleep better, through to, you know, loss of strength and how to mitigate that, through to monitoring fatigue and, you know, all of these different things. So a really nice initiative in and around community and building a community of practice. And you know, this thing, I mean, we'd never done it before. Like, it was all new. Like, we were just, you know, finding our way with it and letting it grow organically. And something that I really enjoyed that came out of it, it's not a very Kiwi thing to do, but we started doing this thing called a check-in. And again, this is something that you could try, you know, with your people, with your team, with your family, at the dinner table, absolutely with yourself at the start or the end of the day. I made the check-in really easy. I just asked the athletes in one word, what gave you joy or energy in the last week? Have a little think about that yourself right now. One word, what gave you joy or energy in the last week? Identify it, latch onto it. We had some wonderful responses, actually. The gift of time. Athletes often replied with, oh, I'm loving just having more time. I'm enjoying more sleep. Of course, food came up, music, you know, opportunity to read more. Maybe one or two said maybe opportunity to study more, but that didn't come up very often, interestingly. Family, loved ones, just being at home, that came up a whole bunch. And that one, actually, that was the main one that came out of our CLAT group, who very much value being at home, being around family. Of course, you know, unless you fight with your sister a whole lot, very hard for a CLAT athlete to maintain that sports-specific skill base that they're so used to. And this was another issue that our sport biomechanics team, and in particular, this was led by Dr. Luke Munn, and in and around how to help our CLAT athletes not only maintain, but improve certain skill sets. And Luke Munn was guided by this constraints-led perspective by Jackson and Farrow 2005, and earlier on Newell way back 1986. And it goes like this. So if you're trying to learn a new skill, whatever it is, it could be cracking an egg, it could be juggling, it could be punching someone in the face and SEALAT, right? You're guided by the orange triangle on the left-hand side of the screen. And there's three different variables. There's you, the organism, there's the task that you're trying to learn, develop skill around, and then there's the environment. And if you change any one of those three variables, you will change inherently the physical performance outcome or the skill execution outcome, right? So obviously, in terms of the environment, our athletes weren't on the mat. They weren't fighting in the gym with each other anymore. They were at home by themselves. And research has shown really clearly now that if we actually change the environment to a more visually orientated environment where the athlete is processing visual information, visual perception, that actually translates to improved physical performance. And sports psychology have been hinging off this principle for many, many years now. After all, nerves that fire together, wire together. And, and it just works. And it's a really, really innovative approach to training in an isolated environment. So here's one of our SEALAT athletes at home. And what she's doing is she's sparring with an opponent who's coming at her with what has been identified as all the winning moves basically out of the last couple of SEA games and the medal matches. It all kind of boils down to certain approaches around attack. And so you can see the athlete here is responding in kind with a parallel defensive move and then counter-attacking. And she's just drilling it down. She is firing nerves and wiring nerves right here. And so, something that came out of Smart Hour was this misconception of muscle memory. It's not actually muscle memory, it's nervous system memory, central nervous system memory. And that's exactly what she's doing there. So really, really nice work. And of course, athletes training at home, athletes eating a bunch at home as well, and enjoyably cooking. And my team and I got thrown into a cooking show during Circuit Breaker. One of the most interesting experiences of my life, actually. We pushed out over 40 episodes. So proud of my team for doing that. And so we got the athletes involved in doing these sorts of things as well. And all the food came out looking like this. But it did kind of come out looking like this. So this came out of the gymnastics squad. And this nice little show and tell piece was delivered by Leanne, senior sport dietitian in my team. And, Leanne's goal there, aiming to normalize and cultivate a healthy relationship with food through cooking. Obviously, with any aesthetic sport where athletes are judged by how they look, I mean, that psychologically, that's quite damaging to healthy nutrition-related behavior. And so Leanne here addressing that in a really nice, creative way, pitching different performance themes to the athletes, low carbohydrate, high antioxidant, low fat, nitrate rich, high protein, and so forth. And, athletes are really competitive people. So creating a competition like this and then getting them to share and really actually, most of them very, very proud of what they put together. That's why they take a photo of it. It's why they share it. You can see the strawberries all decorated down the bottom, lots of care and attention in and around the plating as well. So fantastic stuff. And of course, with so many athletes training at home and training in such a different way to they used to, it can generate issues as well. And this is something that our physiology team have been digging into and just looking at, the athlete experience in a number of different ways and an experience at a number of different levels. One of them was injury. So, as I said, we had 4 days, heads up, circuit breakers coming, and your high performance world is about to be fractured and shattered, really. you know, what are you going to do? You know, so many unique challenges, disruptions in training, competition schedule gone out the window, changes in nutrition, psychological well-being, routines uprooted. And, you know, and Danny and the team, you know, had to clean the gym out overnight. All the weights, all the bands, everything went west, out to our athletes at home, loaning of equipment, you know, building and programming, you know, plans to support them and for them to follow. Unfortunately, Danny couldn't give anybody a swimming pool. He couldn't give anyone a badminton court either. And so, you know, naturally, if you think about a swimmer, for example, who spends about half their life in the water, about 5 hours a day, you know, but yes, about a fifth of their life in water, and suddenly they can't get in the water at all, and they're doing all of their fitness on dry land, and all of that, you know, all of that accrued load that's just so different and stimulus, their body's just, you know, not used to it, and you know, it can create issues. And so one of the really nice pieces of data that came out of this lovely survey that our physiology team drove was in and around prevalent rates of injury. And you can see that athletes that were injury-free prior to circuit breaker, 8.6% sustained an injury. This was a big study. I can't remember the number. It was up close to 300, I think. The good news is Mantong is presenting in depth on this survey and all of the learnings to come from it a little bit later this morning. So stay tuned on that. Athletes that were injured prior to circuit breaker, 5.6% of them re-injured themselves or got a new injury as well. So, you know, we're up around 14% injury rate in the population, you know, just because of circuit breaker and the change in training modalities. Important to recognize that, you know, they're not clinically validated, like it's all self-reported data, but nonetheless, important to take note. And, you know, the attitude around injuries has to be spot on. Like, you know, back in what seems like another life now, when I was working in All Black rugby, like our attitude was, we don't do injuries, we don't do hamstrings. You know, you're not allowed to blow a hamstring, right? Now, of course, people do, like injuries are unavoidable, but if you've got to take the zero tolerance approach and do everything you can to mitigate injuries and illness for athletes. Globally, two big problems. And so our physiology team, working with our S&C team and creating COVID adaptive novel training methodologies, strategies, really innovative, interesting stuff that Mantong is going to expand upon a little bit later today. But, you know, the concern about reducing training load shouldn't be greater than the concern and the importance of managing, you know, progressive change in training load. And then from there we go to, you know, communication really. And this is another piece that our physiology team are looking at right now and in a really nice way. You know, sports science technology has been trying forever really to understand the best way of exploring and understanding just how tired and fatigued an athlete is. And, you know, there's a lot of gadgets and widgets and toys and whiz-bang things out there. But at the end of the day, it just boils down to having a conversation and talking to the athlete and saying, hey, you know, out of 5, how tired are you today? You know, how stressed are you feeling, you know, with your academics? What's your mood like? Like, you know, are you a 1 or are you pumping on a 5? You know, are you sore? How'd you sleep? Are you ready to train today? So, you know, these are the fundamental questions that we can ask our athletes. And now with the emergence of SmarterBase and our athlete wellness tracking within the daily training environment coming online, really nice piece being led by a physiology group to enable some really nice, accurate, bi-directional conversations with our athletes. So that should we find ourselves, God forbid, in another circuit breaker, but you can't rule it out because it's all raging in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment, you know, we'll be ready. And so just really to summarize, to check out, we checked in before, we also checked out in the Smart Hour. And, you know, I'd like you to check out a little bit now, actually. If you just close your eyes, and go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to see yourself doing something really powerful in 6 months' time. This was the question that I asked of the spec scholars and the coaches as well. It could be something powerful in your personal life. It could be something really powerful in your professional life, in your non-sporting life, or in your sporting life. But just see yourself doing that powerful thing. And again, through visual imagery and perception, you are firing and wiring nerves, and you know, and you are shaping future reality with this visualization. You might be wondering why there's a lobster sitting on the screen. So someone asked me once, you know, how do lobsters grow? Like they assumed they just kind of ran around on the bottom of the ocean and they hid under rocks, and you know, like their shell kind of just expanded with them, and they just kind of, you know, grew up all happy. And I said, actually, no, that is not how it goes. The shell of a lobster is fixed. So the lobster grows and grows and grows, all its connective tissue and all its muscles and all its organs, even its eyeballs underneath the shell, right? And it is not until it starts to hurt, it feels pressure, it feels discomfort, it starts to hurt, that it sheds its shell and it grows another shell. And so pain and discomfort and pressure becomes a stimulus for growth for the lobster. And that really is my parting message to you: to grow with pressure, with discomfort. It's our ambition really within sports science at SSI to do the same. And certainly, you know, during COVID, before COVID, during COVID, and now after COVID, you know, we'll continue to grow, we'll continue to feel pressure, and we'll continue to feel discomfort, but it will be a stimulus for growth, for healing circuits, for closing loops, for building community. And Danny, that's all I wanted to say. So thank you very much, folks. I hope you took something away from that. And thank you for the opportunity. Danny, over to you.
All right, thank you, Rico. That was very nice presentation and great highlight of what we have done during the circuit breaker period. Okay, guys, any questions for Rico? Okay, doesn't seem to have any at the moment. Maybe they're still trying to absorb the information and still visualizing what they would do in 6 months' time.
And you're still visualizing.
Well, personally, I would like to be probably somewhere on Mount Buller and skiing if possible.
Danny, you didn't visualize that. You visualized lifting something heavier than you're currently lifting, and blowing up more than 1,000 watts on the watt bike.
That's gonna happen. All right, Rico, just a question. After the circuit breaker, did you get any problem from athletes in terms of weight management?
Yeah, I mean, the first, I mean, obviously, you know, it's on all of our athletes' minds, and, you know, you're getting messages all the time from people, you know, they don't want to get fat, or, you know, they don't want to lose muscle. The first experience I had of that was I walked into the gym and I saw Sahari, our para-athletics chap, and, you know, like he just looked so small. I was really, like, I was quite taken aback, and just chatting with him, you know, he lost about 4 or 5 kilograms. You know, he was eating plenty and doing his best, but what he was missing was, you know, that, because he's a wiry chap, he was missing that stimulus of lifting heavy, and, you know, he lost a lot of muscle mass. So yeah, and then, you know, we had other athletes obviously that that put on a lot of weight, and I saw coaches that put on a lot of weight, and you know, sports scientists that put on a lot of weight as well. You know, but it's just a transient period in time, isn't it? And, you know, it's about you know, just kind of rolling with the punches and not getting too distressed by that. And everybody knows what to do, and we just climb back into it on the other side. Yeah, I think of one particularly young swimmer, young Glenn. I've always tried to put weight on Glenn, and never could, because he's a distant swimmer and he just burns so many calories, and he's 17 years old. And I was texting Desmond, I think was first on the scene, on the pool deck, filming some training, and and I'm swapping notes with Des, what do you see? And he's like, well, I see Glenn, and he's got like a stomach, he's got a tummy, so but then by the time I caught up with Glenn a couple of weeks later in person, he'd lost it. So they get back into training and it all comes off again. It's not a drama. Yeah.
All right, we have one question. During the circuit breaker, how can you maintain the athlete discipline?
Yeah, I mean, people, it comes down to the why, really. Yeah, and it's just about choices. We're making choices every minute, every day. And, people can front up with any old excuse they want for anything, but, like, it's just an excuse. At the end of the day, you made a choice, and we make choices based off whether something's important to us or not. If it's important enough, if you're desperate enough, then you'll make a different choice. So, I think it really kind of boils down to that. And so, linking with our sports psychology team and getting really clear on goal setting, we saw that with PYSIOLOGICAL, finding out what's really important to you and where you want to be, and why you want to be there. If you get really clear on your why, then the choice becomes really, really easy. So, like, actually what you're eating is kind of secondary to, kind of why you're eating it, and getting clear on that. The top 2 inches, Danny.
Yeah, I think so. Discipline is really up to individual, understanding what they want and how hard they want it. I know of one coach, the wrestling coach Artem. He's probably attending this right now. He actually got himself real ripped in the midst of the pandemic. So it is really up to individual to keep their own training status.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree.
We have one more. During the coming phase 3, which may last 1 year, what do you think the new normal of sport training will be?
Oh man, I don't know. I have no idea, Danny. I'm just taking it day by day at the moment. I can't see into the future either. I'm just trying to do what I do today the best I can, and worry about tomorrow. Obviously, future planning is important, and hopefully we see an evolution where we can train in bigger groups, and we can grow that sense of community. Hopefully we start to see some competitions of some sort come through, perhaps sparring locally or even internationally, as green lanes open up to non-essential travel. Hopefully sport can slip into that. It's a tough one, and it's a really challenging time at the moment for sport, because depending on the sport, like, it's a relatively high risk kind of activity with relatively small gains compared to other industries. So yeah, we just got to hang in there and hope that we can find things that we can anchor goals around. Within swimming, we have time trials coming up, identified early next year, which I think have been sanctioned as Olympic qualifiers as well, certainly for open water for Chantal. So, as an example, that's what she's aiming for. Yeah. So, hopefully it's all of that. I know that, we've all gotten better at what we do in different and dynamic ways. I reckon that we're all a lot tighter now than we were before COVID, actually, which is really kind of ironic since we don't really see each other a whole bunch. But I think it's going to be that, and hopefully a whole lot more, Danny.
Next question. What was one of your best take-home learning experiences for the Smart Hour?
Or one of my own personal ones?
Yeah.
for me personally, so I was like, I was kind of asking all the questions, and you know, actually, the thing for me was just getting feedback and seeing it become better. Like the first one was a little bit rough. You know, none of us had ever done it before. I never led anything like that before, and you know, just being really open to constructive feedback and having, you know, robust conversations that, you know, might potentially, you know, leave you feeling defensive or a little bit raw, but being open to that, and, you know, growing personally and professionally from that, and actually seeing it transform and become this thing that just flew really, really well. And, you know, talking with athletes through post Smart Hour survey and things, and seeing how well it was received. The athletes, you know, want more of it. Like that's just a really good feeling. And, you know, I suppose that's my why as well, as just helping people get a little bit better at what they do. You know, health and wellness is really central and core to, you know, to my own belief systems and my own purpose on this planet, and helping people, you know, live, be the best version of themselves, I suppose. So, you know, no matter what that looks like, wherever they're starting, wherever they're going, whatever they do. Yeah, and I was able to help do that through that platform. So for me, that was a real buzz. I really, really enjoyed it.
Okay, there's one question on nutrition.
Oh, okay.
In the blue zones, the diet comprised mainly fish and vegetable, little meat. Is that the secret to longevity and perhaps optimal athlete nutrition? This also writes on the conversation about plant-based diets after the Game Changer was released. What's your opinion on that?
It's a fascinating space, this. I mean, the only thing we can really conclusively say about longevity is that eating less calories and being slightly starved, that seems to help people live longer. It's a plant-based diet for sure. Yep, they eat a little bit of fish. They eat meat maybe once a week. Most of their protein comes from plant-based sources. They all, apart from a small 7-day Adventist community in California, they all take a little bit of alcohol in a sensible, healthy way each day. You know, they eat a lot of nuts. But there's this big slant on plants, which means they're not over-consuming calories, but they are consuming a whole bunch of antioxidants and phytonutrient-rich foods. And, you know, there was even a really interesting study with runners, and they looked at omnivorous runners who ate meat and pitched them up against runners who were vegetarian and just ate plant-based protein sources. And the vegetarian runners outran the meat-eating runners. And, you know, the study authors concluded that it is probably this phytonutrient intake that's enhancing, accelerating the ability of the athlete to recover. Of course, you know, so many different sports, so many different phenotypes, and, you know, required physical sizes. Very rare to find a rugby player who's a vegetarian because they need, you know, so many calories because they need to be so big. And indeed, when they retire, often a lot of them lose about 10 kilograms. So they're kind of trying to float a little bit above their natural genetic weight. And then you've got other sports where, you know, the athletes need to be, you know, really tiny and lean. And I think, you know, that could be an advantage to athletes who need to be small and lean. You know, it helps them maintain a lower calorie diet, but in a really healthy way, and maintain their physique traits that's required for their sport. But yeah, I mean, it's just a general theme. We're all different, and, you know, there's no one size fits all. That is for sure. But in general, the take-home message is slant on plants, eating more whole food, real food, colorful food, colors of the rainbow. It is very, very good for us.
All right. I think we have to wrap up now. There probably is one or two more questions. Rico will probably want to stay around and help to answer that on the chat. Yeah.
Sure thing. Can do, Danny. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your
Thanks for moderating, Danny. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
No
good morning.
All right.